Hi, it's just beautiful that all of you have come here this morning, and I can actually see how each and every one of you have enjoyed the games that we've put together here. The soul of this place, the Kavade and Attic, is games. I'm Sreeranjini. It was in 2007 that I started the store Kavade. Now, how it came about starting the store, it's not just that it happened overnight and I decided to start the store. I have always had a love for hobby stores, little things. I would love to go into spaces where antique and vintage stuff would be sitting in a dusty corner, and I would love to pick them up. And I had that in my mind that I'd love to do something like this. After having my kids, with due respect to all the well-wishers, the kind of games that my kids got when they were a year old, I did not think that is what I would, that's something fantastic, but at the same time I wanted them to enjoy something more simple, not light, not plastic, not battery needing toys. And so I thought, let me introduce some of the games to my children that I grew up with. And when I wanted to pick up some of these games, they were not available in any of the outlets. We only had the Monopoly, Scrabble, those kind of games available, while Chaukabara, Algoli Mane, we never had them available in the stores. At the same time, what was very interesting is there was somebody who was working with a self-help group in Kanyakumari and said, hey, we are trying to create some interesting learning aids and toys with palm leaf. Would you be interested in taking up these? Because I had spoken to them, couple of people, about my idea of traditional board games. They said, okay, let's start with that. Because 2-3 of the things that I set out with when I started the store is that I would definitely have my store dedicated to ancient games. And the second aspect that I thought I would focus on is keep it eco-friendly. I definitely didn't want to have plastic in our store. And then a small percentage, wherever possible, I'll work with a self-help group. So the three have come together very beautifully with our store. The store itself is an irony, right? Store is an irony because most of the games that you've played today do not require the kind of boards that you played with. That's what I was also saying. We have tried to up the ambience when we have created this space. Chaukabara, you can just draw. I grew up with this game drawn on our driveway, and we would just play with all the elements that were just available in our garden. But my store is existing. We are selling these games. They are beautifully made, which is why people buy. And same reason, if I told a child or you, if we were sitting here and I said, let's just draw Chaukabara and play, I think the interest element is not as high as how you would see the colorful playing pieces. So that's the aesthetics into which we have grown into, which is what we are trying to do at our store. And I was telling Karishma the other day that maybe in the next decade, my store will not be needed anymore. It will become a household game back to what it was earlier. So let's hope it becomes like that. These games lend to all age groups. I have seen Auntie playing here. She's loved playing the game. And we have 6-year-olds coming, sitting and playing the same game. It's not that I've offered a different game to the child. But if you sit in front of the Palanguri or the Alguli Mane, a 6-year-old will play the game with as much enthusiasm as an 80-year-old or a 60-year-old. You know how long it takes to play Pagde, right? The few people who played Pagde today, it does take like 2 hours to actually finish the game what you've started with. And that's a patience elders have. That's a patience we youngsters don't really have. We want games to kind of finish sooner and faster. But somehow I feel we have tried this with 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds who've been completely out of the, traditional games. When I say out of, they've been completely loaded with gadgets. And this was again done by a newspaper group who wanted to try this out, the digital influence of games. And when the kids came here, they spent 2 hours at our space trying to play the games. And the result was fantastic. Each of them could pick up a game and they stayed with the game for like an hour continuously. which is something most people tend to think, can we sit with a game for like even 20 minutes? It feels like a hard thing to do, but when the games lend themselves to all of us that way very beautifully, I think there's something about it. I don't know what it is. I haven't really cracked what exactly the bit about these games that every age group kind of connects to them. Now I've been doing this for the last 10 years now, and I started this setup with a good amount of my own knowledge about a lot of these games. And as I've progressed, there have been visitors coming to our store and they're saying, hey, this is something we used to play, could you create this for us? And very interestingly, some of the games, the pieces they used to make with wax. They would create these different pieces with wax, and they would play the game with that. And Kavade, the game in Karnataka and in North, it's called as Chowpad, and in the West it's called Ludo now. In Tamil Nadu, they play it as Dayakattam, and Dayakattam, the dice itself is very different. If here you've played with 1, 3, 4, 6 markings on the dice, the Dayakattam dice has blank 1, 2, 3. And for them, the blank is very important. I remember one person walking into my store and saying, is this the dime that you have? I said, yes. But this is 1, 3, 4, 6. How can you play the game with it? I said, we play a game with it. And then she said, no, you have to get a 1 to start the game. So, the 1, and interestingly in Tamil Nadu, Dayam means relationship. It just, the games come from the ecosystem. So for the players, the relationship becomes much more important. You start the game symbolically, keeping your relation at that level. So you get a 1 to start the game. So there the dice will be blank 1, 2, 3. When you throw the dice, you can get blank on one side, on one dice, and 1 on the other dice, which makes it a dayam, and that's when you can start the game. So that way, the research has been with people who visit my store. When I travel out, different spaces that I go to, there are always interesting things that we see. And as you grow into this, you'll realize that any historic monument you go to, you're bound to see some of these games etched on the floors. Even recently, I was there at Sandur, and there was this really old temple, Chola's time temple. And my eyes are always darting at all these spaces to see what kind of game is sitting here. And it was very discreet, the first step that you enter the temple, there were 2, 3 steps, and the lowermost step, I went a little late in the evening, and I saw that there is the same tiger and goat game etched on that stone, slightly different structure. That tiger and goat game, the few of you who got to play today, comes in at least 7, 8 different structures. This is one of the most commonly known structures in Karnataka, which is why we have it here. But there are many different structures. You go to Lepakshi temple, you'll see a different kind. It's like a square and then triangles on all 4 sides. The game soul is the same. There is a prey and predator. And these games are not just from our country. They come from across the world, which makes it even more fantastic for me, When you travel to Africa, you will find a game like Pallanguri that people have been playing. It just might look a little different. It would be made of wood, and they have a bigger number of cups that they play with. And if you went towards some of the European countries have a lot of these line games. The Morris game that you played, the Morabara, the few of you who played the tic-tac-toe kind of game, that is of course very much as much Indian as African as European. In European world, they call it 9 men's Morris or 12 men's Morris or 3 men's Morris. Here we call it Saluata or Navakankri. In Africa, they call it Morabara. So those are elements that really give me a kick, and it wants me to go deeper and deeper and deeper into what I've been learning. And the very fact that these games were being played across different civilizations in a similar way it feels like a very unifying, games just bring us all onto the same platform is what I feel. Regardless of age, regardless of geography, you're there playing a game because you're 10 people coming together. And of course, we have a lot of books, few books that from which I refer to for some of the games, and the internet too. So there is a good amount that I draw from all these sources. the idea is to make this a much more household, much more everyone's game. Like, you know, what really feels bad is every household has a Ludo today, but they don't have a Pagade set in their homes. British came here, they saw the game, they found it very beautiful. Let's agree the Westerners are very good with marketing, right? Packaging and marketing is really good with them. But we can't be losing out games just because the marketing and packaging is very good when it comes from outside. That was another reason why when I started the store, I said, I wasn't really, I didn't have all of this with me when I started. I said, I think the games, our ancient games, have to become popular within our community by ourselves, rather than it going out and coming back to India saying, hey, this is, you know, the thing that you should be playing. This creates, this increases your thinking power, it increases your strategic thinking. But what I think we have not been doing as a community is cognitive thinking, for cognitive understanding of a lot of our practices. So I don't come from the background that everything ancient is fantastic. We need to evolve, understand, and probably draw out elements that work for us in this scenario today, and not let go of it so easily. If these games have been around for several centuries now, there must be something about it. There is a resilience to it that makes it stick on and makes people like us come together and play, which I feel we shouldn't let go. Sure. That's a question I would like to ask people back, actually, because we always have an issue. So we've created this space. It's not like we have a huge a group for our space also. It's done with a lot of interest and a lot of thinking to put together this space. But I think marketing today, okay, one of the things I see as a reason why we are not able to get through to people is, it's a very distracted world today. It's a whole lot of push that we have to make to remind people and ask them to come to our space. The second reason I see people not very easily coming to any meetups like this is the problem of transport in the city. Traveling from one place to another, people find it very daunting. The other aspect I feel is needed when people come together is food. So that is always something that lures people. I feel that is missing in our place, which is why we don't have too many people coming here. So I feel that those are three elements. Keep telling people that this is happening, please come, and then offering food, and then of course having the best of the best music in place. It is a lot of work. For me, I find it very difficult to do that kind of marketing for my space because I don't have a huge team. It's something that I believe in completely, but I don't have the marketing expertise also, to be very frank. Which is why for us at this space, in spite of what it offers, it becomes very difficult for us to gang up a lot of people when we plan something. I wouldn't say we're going to compete with those board games at all. It is adding to the platter. So at any point of time, we are not trying to remove the newer game designs. It's just fantastic that people come together to play any kind of game, right? Even if you wanted to come together to play football or cricket today, it is great. But how many people come together to play Kho-Kho or Lagori? They're as much fun as football, right? What I'm only trying to say is, let us include these games into your already existent menu and already existent entertainment zones, and try to play this with a pride that it is ours. That's all we are trying to do. And when you do that, so to add to what for what you were saying, games like Catan, do you think you can play that with your 5-year-old? Do you think you can play that with your parents or grandparents? It doesn't, right? Some of the newer games are they're slicing up the age groups. It is very nice to have a mixture. It's like Montessori schools, right? you have different age groups sitting together and learning the same things, the peer-to-peer learning makes it a lot more rich. So, if a 30-year-old is playing with a 20-year-old, the kind of exchange of information is different. So, I think that is where these games lend to. You can have stories coming from different groups that are sitting and playing, which you wouldn't have otherwise when you are sitting and playing a newer game. It's always about this strategy and let me do that, and you're trying to think of how to win the game. I know socializing is an important aspect of board games, but when you start playing the game, it just becomes winning and finishing the game. Am I right? Is that no? There is so let me tell you what happened when I was once traveling to somewhere near Shimoga I was going to, and there was this, we had a vehicle breakdown somewhere in between, and we had to just wait for a while for the replacement taxi to come. And as I was walking, I was just drawn to this old house which had this huge tamarind tree, very beautiful. You know, if you have seen tamarind trees, it kind of gives a lovely shade also. I was just looking at it like that, and suddenly the person from inside opened the door, and I was a little taken aback, because coming from the city, usually if somebody is watching it into my house, I will be a little I wouldn't like it much. But then that lady, who was probably in her 40s or 50s, I can't remember, this was almost 10 years back, she gently opened the door and said, "Yen beku nimge." I don't know how many of you get Kannada. She just asked me, what is it I'm looking at? I said, no, nothing, I was just waiting here. I said, why don't you come inside? I was like, oh really? And I said, you want to have coffee? So we were like a bunch of 5 more people. I said, no, we are a big group, that's all right, we'll it's. And then she said, no, please come in and have a cup of coffee. And she had this nice little ledge in front of her house, and we were sitting there, and this particular game was scooped out on that seating area. And then I looked at it and said, is this something we can play? I said, sure. And all we did was we went out to her garden, and that was January, when the tamarind seeds are also down there, and she had a pile sitting out there with all the tamarind seeds. So we just pulled that out, sat there, played some games. I was probably in my 20s, and she was in her 50s, and we had a kid amongst us and a few of us adults as well. We just had a great time. It was not that all of us were playing a game. We were 2-3 of us playing and strategizing on the game, but the very fact that we just pulled out some things from that ecosystem, that lady was trusting enough to let us into her house, it's a whole new story that comes about with these games, I feel, when you go back to where it came from. So those elements are what we might have to go back to while we are playing these games, not just about the strategizing bit. Does that make sense? Yeah?
It's also about the connection that people had with the natural surroundings.
Yeah.
It's a big reason for these games to also have sort of
Gone out of, yeah, it is, yeah. You rarely find red oxide flooring now. Most of our houses have vitrified floors where you're not allowed to draw anything on the floor, right? It's not possible, but even if it's possible, hey, don't spoil that, I spent a lot on that flooring, right? And we don't have the kind of, I have climbed up trees as well, but we don't have that kind of trees that we can climb up on, allow our children. We are scared to let anybody go beyond a certain risk factor. It's a very shocking thing that today what we are living in is the indoor playgrounds. All of us are in indoor playgrounds. We've made our lives so comfortable indoor that we rarely want to go outdoor. We are bored with what we are reading, we have TV there. We are bored with TV, we have a TT table within our space. We have everything in our vicinity that we don't feel the need to step out and go out and explore something on our own. When you explore, when you look at twigs and seeds, you might, as basic human beings, there is that tendency to put them together and create some interesting, it could be designs, it could be games, it could be just an artwork. It is difficult. Some of the most common games are the 5-6 games that we have, but there are a few people, again, Irving Finkel is a person who has documented a lot of our board games, Indian board games. again, I'll be wrong when I say Indian, because these are again found in different parts of the country, but his research has been in India, so that's a good documentation available. And then some of the old Sanskrit books that are there in the libraries, they give us a lot of input on some of the games. Mumadi Krishnaraj Wadiyar was a big connoisseur of our board games. So he has evolved these games to the level that his soldiers could play while they were free. If you remember, Mumadi's time was in the time when war was at a peak. Art, all of this flourished, art and music flourished during his time, and he was a fan of board games. He changed like the tiger and goat to suit his soldiers and made it elephants and soldiers. And another chess, the knight of the chess, right, the horse. The knight store he created with the symbolic elements that religious Indians believed in. So those elements he brought in and he created that. And regarding more information, it is a tough thing. So people who have played, recently what I learnt was a game called Tablefall. Alright, so this lady, she called me and said, I have this old game sitting with me. I know how to play. She's not married, she doesn't have children. She said, can I give it to you? I said, definitely, I'd love to have that game, but you should also teach me how to play. It's not one point where we have material available just like that to pull up. It just feels very beautiful, that much I can say. When you, for me, it feels like connecting the dots, and it's a realization that wow, these are all similar.